All right. So that we provide support for parents, which we feel is kind of not there in enough, what should I say, enough uh, quality, enough information. There's enough happening, if you ask me, there's enough happening about the clinical part. We know the definitions and stuff like that. But as parents, what should we do is not something that is very easy. If all of you could please put your, your mics on mute, because I'm hearing some echo here. All right, perfect. So the reason we wanted to talk about this is to provide some information in terms of what a parent can do. We're talking about middle and high schoolers. It's a challenging age. On top of that, we probably have pretty strong personalities that have been shaped by history so far. We also then have ADHD on top of it, right? And there's a lot of information out there, but I want you to go with this visualization today. Imagine that your child or whoever you're living with ADHD is a Ferrari with a fabulous, really powerful engine, but the brakes of a bicycle, a tricycle if you want, which has no brakes, but we'll go with little brakes with a bicycle. So that is the level of difficulty our kids have. When we're thinking like that, now suddenly, instead of saying they won't do something, we start talking about they can't do something. So that's where we're coming from in terms of what can we do to help out. So ADHD is identified as disordered regulation. If you look at ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity syndrome, but it's actually disordered regulation. Right? That means when I need it, I'm not able to do it, but that doesn't mean I can't do it all the time. And disordered regulation of attention, being impulsive and hyperactive. So we want to talk about a few of these things without going into too much detail. So inattention, everyone has a basic idea of. Impulsivity is these children will know what is right and wrong before. They will know what is right and wrong after. But if you ask them, why did you do it? There would be no answer. So a person with ADHD will not be able to answer a why. And that's because their brain is wired like that. The word hyperactive has been misused like crazy. So basically, anything happens, oh, that person is little energetic, that person is hyperactive, right? So we want to talk a little about how, one, we should not be using this term as loosely as we are. Number two, hyperactivity can look like different things at different ages. So a 3-year-old will be literally bouncing off, will have, it'll go 0 will be one state and 100 will be the other state, literally waking and running. And when they're not doing anything, back to sleeping, right? That's what it's like. A motor will always be talking. But what happens around middle and high school is a little of the outside symptoms kind of go down. So this child will look like they are not. So that's why people say, oh, they grow out of it. But they actually don't grow out of it. It's just that it changes its shape and form. And the hyperactivity is still in the brain. The unfortunate thing now is it's kind of gone under and we can't always tell, right? And this is now there is inattention as well. There's also impulsivity. Now add this to that Ferrari engine, which is very, very smart, intelligent, able to think beyond the box. There are a lot of strengths with ADHD. So with all this, we have this perfect storm. And unfortunately, in a world that is typified by boxes and people stuck into boxes, school systems, generalizations, social norms and judgments, manners, and all of these systems that we have in place, this child with ADHD looks like they don't fit everywhere. And it's never usually in a good way. Right? We will say, oh, Justin Timberlake has ADHD. We want to own him when he's Justin Timberlake. We don't want to own the difficulties that come with middle school as well, and no one sees those parts of it. Michael Phelps had ADHD, but if you notice many of these celebrity lives, they speak about it. They have done extremely well on some levels, but they have also struggled a lot on other levels, which they also put out, being nice. They put that out as well. Unfortunately, I cannot give you an Indian example because many celebrities don't come out and speak about it. So if you know someone who's out there, please let us know. We would love to know ourselves. Couple of things here. One, if there's a specific event that you can say they were okay until this and after that it happened, then it's not ADHD. because a child with ADHD, it's a wiring difficulty, and you will see it depending on the level of difficulty. You will see it as early as 2.5, 3. I know people adults who have gotten diagnosed with it later as well. So it's not something that goes away. But if it's related to a specific event, it could be trauma related. It could look like ADHD, but what works for ADHD won't work for trauma related stuff. It needs to be in all environments. So as parents, I'll tell you what happens is, and I'm speaking, kind of halfway in between. I'm not just speaking as a teacher or a professional, halfway in between with a lot of empathy, because I do live with it as well. It is that I'll say, but as if I had a child, I would say, but at home it's handled, it's okay, right? The difficulties are at school. So we say it's not in different environments, it's only at school. But that's actually not the case, because when they say something about that kid, if it is true ADHD, you will recognize that you have that same difficulty at home. At home, the difficulty is not going to be at the same level because one, the home doesn't have the same demands. And two, over a period of time, we have subconsciously kind of accommodated it. We say, this is what is going to happen. Let's remove this negative trigger. So we've done it unconsciously, so it doesn't look like the child has as much difficulty at home. And thank God for that. Where will these kids actually go, and have a safe space? Though I have to say, many times the home is not a safe space because we don't know what to do, and there is yelling and screaming. And this happens with every person because unfortunately for us, we're all only human, right? We're only super mom when it comes to Mother's Day. Other than that, we're just regular moms, kind of trying to do our best. ADHD can only be diagnosed if it's been around for 6 months or more. So for a 3-year-old to be diagnosed, it takes a severe level of difficulty. Guys, any questions, you can put it on chat. Parul is here and we will answer all questions later as well. And if you want to just kind of ask a question verbally, that's perfectly fine too. Now, Emma Thompson has all A's in her GCSEs. She has a degree from Oxford, and we know she has a stellar film career. So this is what a person with ADHD can do. Imagine the level of multitasking. Either one would have taken me pretty much all my life to do, assuming I had what it took to become a film actor, right? So there's hyper focus. This is a child, I've had kids who have struggled. They've had 150 assignments due, but they've assembled that computer that they attended classes on Zoom, right? So we're talking about some serious strengths here. Motivated beyond everyone at what they love. Any one of you who has kids who you found their strengths, say in music or sports, you will know that this child will do whatever it takes to be able to go and do that sport. But for everything else, say it's a 8:30 online class, which all of us struggled with during COVID, getting them out there from their room to the class would have been a struggle that took probably a month and a half, and we still haven't gotten there. You would think that a 2-minute walk to wherever your computer is in the house should not be a problem, but it is. Very spontaneous, risk takers. So a lot of entrepreneurs have ADHD, can be good and bad. Like, we only know the success stories, so we don't know how far this risk has gone. But all of us living, if we have seen a person with ADHD, we also know that this risk taking can go both ways. Very, very energetic, and they only think out of the box. We are all trying to break the box, and they haven't seen the box to start with. So going from the strengths approach, it's very important. So we're going to talk from the parent perspective quite a bit, because that's what it takes for a child to be successful. Even if you are in an inclusive school and the school is doing everything possible, 60 to 70% of what has to happen at home. And I think what happens also in many diagnoses, they use this mild, moderate, and severe. That has been discredited by the scientific community. It is predominantly inattentive, predominantly impulsive, hyperactive, and predominantly combined. So I think that mild, moderate, severe gives parents some level of, support or fear, which is why we kind of stick to it. So we've always heard, but my child is very mild, right? Very mild on the symptom. It honestly, once the child has ADHD, it's a wiring difficulty. Maybe the difficulties in some areas are lower, which is what this talks about. So when they say predominantly inattentive, it doesn't mean that there is no hyperactivity. It just means that the difficulties are more from the inattention, right? I'm just going to mute everybody just for a second. All right. So what does impulsive hyperactive look like? This would be someone who would show up on every behavior chart in every classroom. You can, it doesn't matter which classroom. Alternative classroom, there are, an alternative classroom has its own challenges, right? There are a lot of social requirements. There's a lot of empathy requirement, and our children will struggle with that. So struggle with the right choices to make, will take risks that are detrimental. Many times will do, will not kind of understand that what they're doing is actually closing their opportunities, will struggle with turn taking, because working memory is a difficulty. And we'll get into some of the executive functioning skills in a little while. But because working memory is a difficulty, we'll say, I just have to say it now because otherwise I'll forget. A lot of this you may or may not see with a middle schooler because they kind of are masking it, and they have socially been pushed to do certain things, and they want to do things that make them look good among their peers. So they would have themselves kind of worked on themselves a little. You're not going to find them jumping around, but this would be the first person who say, I need the fan, and walk up and put on the fan, or take the long route out. So the body somewhere has figured out that we have to, get this input, and I'm going to provide that input to myself. The combined person with combined ADHD is going to have the most amount of difficulty, because I think now, and this is true, I think, of all school systems all over the world, we are at least now able to take someone who's not doing well academically, but when it's behavior related, there's a lot of judgment, and we don't teach, right? If we were to look at behavior just as we look at math and English and social science, then we would teach what it took. But unfortunately, this is something that we expect to be available. And when it's not, we judge instead of provide support. So this, I think, is something that we all as parents have to change. I wish I can say all school systems should be the perfect ones. That, in my lifetime, I don't know if I'll see it. But if that is, that's a great day. But in the meantime, what can I do for the kid I am with? Understand it really well. In terms of causes, there are biological and environmental causes that have caused it. This will itself show you that some of the myths that we come up with later, just impossible. Because if it is a structural or an electrical change, we can repetitively reduce the deficit, but it's impossible for anyone to grow out of it without support. Environmentally, if our children have been, have it's low birth weight, which happens to a lot of kids for several reasons. If there's been exposure to any chemical, all of this are part of the causes. Now, do we know everything there is to know about it? Absolutely not. These are the ones that we've put out that are research-based and proven so far. Diagnosis, unfortunately, is on a behavior scale, very subjective, and is filled out by parents and teachers. We've seen both, where teachers have escalated the difficulty to a great level. We've seen where parents have escalated it to a great level. So what they're trying to do is to say, can we have enough people to at least answer it, to say, does a child have a difficulty or not? There are physical ways to do it, but these are in infancy on several levels. One, finding the material, having it be affordable, like a SPECT scan or an fMRI, we are not there yet. It's, again, very few places in the world have it. The other part is there enough data that has been fed into these databases to say this is what a SPECT scan of an ADHD kid will look like? If we don't even have the scans in place, then that's also a problem. So again, this is something hopefully we'll be able to say without any subjectivity in a little while, but right now we are not there yet. So what are some myths? It's manufactured. It never happened in my time. How many of you have kids and have heard this from parents or people around? These are all new age things. This is because you guys are eating junk food. Your lifestyles have changed. We used to go into the fields and we ate ragi and we had no problems. I think probably because they went into the fields and didn't have to sit in a classroom, maybe it didn't come out. But most of us have had classes where we've sat with people who've had difficulties, who've had similar issues, and I feel bad that they haven't been given the support. Yeah, Menaka, you had a question.
No, I was just doing a thumbs up saying that these are all things that I have heard. I've been told to give my son buttermilk and cooling things and it will all be fine. And yeah, I'm just saying thumbs up to yes. I have heard all of this and I have tried many things. So totally, yeah, with you on that.
If it were only that easy, if a parent was a problem, then if you remove them from the situation, which is what it is at school, there should be no difficulty. Right?
Yeah.
Some of this can be just taken care of by logic, which
Yeah.
unfortunately doesn't work.
I do have one question on this. And I mean, I've read in multiple places that, things like ADHD are also genetic.
Mhm.
And so when someone says, oh, it's genetic, but no one in our family has this, no one in my side has this, no one in your side has this. I mean, is there truth to that? And my thing is also that we don't know if people had it or not, because there was possibly no, like in my parents' generation, who was testing? Where were the tests? Where was the support in schools?
Yeah. So one thing we do know is genetic is a part of it, but that's not the only reason. Because a lot of parents of kids with difficulties in the US have gone and themselves got themselves diagnosed.
Okay.
In India, we are still again in several levels of denial.
Mm.
So working with the parents a lot is about helping them understand that, listen, even if you have it, it's not this big issue. It is hard. No one's saying it's easy, but we can all do well. So once maybe when the stigma goes away, or maybe there's a little more information about it, or maybe when our schools are kind of just going to take and no one has to deny it in order to get their kid admission, maybe when we get there, we'll get there too. But there is definitely a genetic part of it.
Right.
The good thing though is now we know, with all that we know about neuroplasticity, we also know that we can reduce some of those very specific wiring difficulties. So there is a lot of good coming from science as well. Okay, modern day parenting, good discipline will take care of it. I don't know about you, but good discipline in my parents' generation was a whack with a chappal. I turned out very well. We've had parents say all this to us. I turned out very well. I was also like this. My child is going to do fine, I hope. And that's what we work towards, right? As teachers and inclusive educators, we do want the children to do fine. But while boundaries are very important and it's very much part of the solution, it is not the cause for ADHD. Children do not grow out of it. Many of them maybe learn to mask it, which is a problem, because over a period of time of masking, that there is a significant emotional cost to it. We are now learning about what it takes, ADHD masking and autism masking, what it does to an adult. So we honestly don't want them to be masking it, but we do want them to learn to cope with it, learn to not have difficulties, learn techniques and solutions that help them. A lot of children will be very hyperactive physically when they are young, but that will not show up as much. So we think that they have grown out of it, but we don't honestly know how much of it is still zinging. There are children now who can recognize, are telling us, but when I sit and I start this, it's like I'm all over the place, right? So we do know that children are telling us that. There are adults telling us that. So there's enough information out there. Do I know if it's my child? No, but I have to assume that's part of the difficulty. When my child is watching TV, when they're playing video games, hours on end, no problems with sitting tolerance. And here you're telling me you can't sit for 5 minutes in school. If you're watching Netflix and you have ADHD, you will walk around, you'll go to the bathroom, you'll get some popcorn, you'll go to the fridge, and you will get your work and you will still get it done, right? There is enough sensory inputs coming from the TV and the video games, providing that zing that body can sit. The issue is not when we are worried about things that are fun. This child with ADHD on a sports ground will still look like they have a difficulty. They'll do very, very well, likely, in some of the skills that are required, but things like dealing with disappointment, learning to not fight with someone, say there is cheating, stuff like that, they will still have difficulties. So even with stuff that they do well, there will be difficulties. But sitting and watching TV is very one way. I'm absorbing and I see all that jumping up and I'm sitting, I'm involved in something. It's obviously very entertaining. So that's not something for us to think about and say, because they have no issue with that, there is no issue with attention or ADHD. Myth is once you are diagnosed, everything is lost. Absolutely not. They're very, very successful, independent lives, individuals who have done very, very well. And that's what we want to work with. Now, again, I am sorry to say this, but as a parent, our job is never going to end. Even if there is going to be so what we have found with adults with difficulties is, with ADHD, is they struggle with relationships. They struggle with keeping jobs. They struggle with anything that is very boring. So it's very important for us to find their interests and help them, feel comfortable there so that it's not hard for them to continue on with the job. So these are all things that we're going to have in different levels as we grow up with the kids. So when we're saying ADHD and these skills, what skills are we talking about developing? These are specific skills called executive functioning. Metacognition is being aware of what I am doing as I'm doing it, like I'm getting upset right now, I need to calm down. These are all areas where our kids have difficulties. So why should I persevere at something I find boring? It's boring, don't care, don't want to do it. It's hard, I don't want to do it. It's going to stay hard because I didn't want to do it. But that metacognition to say, so it's a kind of a perfect storm, everything is coming together. That means this child is going to have difficulties. It's difficult. I have trouble starting it. I don't know what I need for it, right? I will start it and then I will immediately forget something. I can't pay attention even if I do start it. Then I find it boring. I don't want to stick with it. And no one's sitting there and saying, hey, it's for your good. Come on, it's good to your future. So can you imagine how hard any kind of a project is going to be? So what do we have to do as parents? First, observe. So as a parent, you almost have to kind of split yourself and think about yourself as a clinical person observing this person who may or may not be my kid, but for that point, no point putting that emotion in there. So what is this child doing? And this is very, very important. This means we don't get into any they always do it, they never do it, which is not true. We take away judgmental language and we say, okay, child sits to read. This happens. Like just a straight observation of what happens in order to figure out which of these skills are the biggest difficulty. Now we have to work with all these, but we can't do it all at the same time. So we're going to have to prioritize 3 or 4. And for that, we observe, we identify which skill is priority, and then we teach. Yeah. Over a period of time, like by the end of the thing, I'm going to put a couple of links on chat that will help you also identify these skills with a little more, structure. Any questions, guys? Anyone wants to ask anything? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Yeah. Also the question of motivation. So for example, I've seen with my child that he's in 9th grade now, he has boards next year. I sense there's a lot of fear inside him about his boards. So he's putting in all this effort, he's trying really hard, and that doesn't always translate then into marks in his exams. And so then there's this demotivation and this feeling of, oh, I'm trying so hard. And he really is trying hard. I mean, but it's just not necessarily translating. If anything on how to deal with that.
Absolutely.
Because he's also at that age where marks matter, for him and that's the message he's constantly getting also.
Right. And if you think about it, like I tell any kid I work with that, listen, you don't want someone else to have control over your choices. If you're going to get the marks you need to get there, then you're kind of helping yourself. Yeah, we'll get into that. This is why we want to work. This is why study skills is something we are completely behind, because we don't want children to study hard. We want them to study smart, and we want them to learn the skills as to what they need to do. If you really think about it, maybe some boards are better than others, but a good answer is a good answer. Right? It would be that if I'm asking a concept, I don't know, photosynthesis, I need to have sunlight, I need to have chlorophyll, I need to have leaves, tomato, depending on the board and the level of the kid, the high, the details will be different. But a good answer will usually be a good answer. So we have to teach children what needs to be there. How do you identify key terms? Yeah. Right? So we have to help them with those kind of skills to get them there. And some parts are also then how do you address the exam part of it? What are exam skills? What do I start with? How do I go about it? If I see a multiple choice question that I don't know, how do I make an informed guess? Right? These are all skills that would help if we teach. So before going into what we can do, this is something that we are learning about ADHD in recent times. This is called rejection sensitive dysphoria. Many people with ADHD have it. This doesn't mean anyone who has RSD has ADHD, but it's one of those things that many people with ADHD have. Dysphoria literally means hard to bear, Greek or Latin, I forget. Overtly emotional reaction. That means, for example, let me give you an example of something that happened yesterday. We have one of our kids in grade 1. I walk into the cafeteria and are met with like tears, extreme emotional angst. What happened? My friend is sitting. This is a desk with 4 people, and they're not allowing me to sit. And my friend has it against me. Then we say, look around, everyone. The rule is that there have to be only 4 for a seat. And I know this is not middle and high school, it's going to show up differently there. But it was just very clear and played out in front of our eyes yesterday. He says, no, that's not fair. Why does a rule have to be like this, that it separates me from my friend? Now, by this time, she has cried. She has made such a tantrum that the people in the desk who wanted to stay with her now don't necessarily want to have too much to do with her. One of the kids says she's shouting too loudly. Can you tell her to be soft? Now we're like, hey, listen, she's having a tough time. And this kid goes, I also have a tough time. I also cry, but I don't make such a ruckus. Right? So these are all things. What happens is that emotional reaction by itself is hard for the child, but the side effects of what happens around it is equally hard. So that means they avoid social situations for embarrassment's sake, may not be able to keep friends because everything is so hard. And over a period of time, really no one wants to deal with a very high maintenance person, right? We all want to be high maintenance, right? We don't want to deal with it. So, okay, guys, before we go here, I'm going to share and do something. I want you to see how this helps. So because it's ADHD, we want to do something with movement. So please pick any one. Keep your videos off. We're not looking. But can you do one of these? For example, do you want to flicker like a candle? Do you want to shine like the moon? Do you want to stand like a Christmas tree? I'm going to try the Christmas tree. So you will find that even as someone without ADHD, a short break like this will bring your brain back and make it ready to learn. And many times, this could be something that we do with our children. Yeah. Please take the breaks. It helps all of us. It definitely helps our kid with ADHD. So now getting into, told you all about what the issues are, right? Now I'm sorry. So let's get into what we can do. So step 1 is always the physical stuff. What is the diet looking like? Gut health, very important. Any probiotics that you can do. The gut has the second most number of neurons in the body after the brain, which is why we say we have a gut reaction when something happens to us, right? Before the brain gets it, our gut has it. So very important that the gut has enough probiotics. You will find like with other difficulties, if there's candida, the children will be giggling a lot. You know, there is an actual immediate response. At the center of sorry, is someone asking a question? Okay. So diet, very, very important. We're talking about complex carbs. That means low on sugar, higher on protein. Very important, there is this thing called high fructose corn syrup. It is in a lot of food that we call junk food. It's in your maple syrup. It's in a bunch of other things. It's added on to sweeten. It has been proven to have to make ADHD symptoms worse. We know now that it can't cause it, but it definitely can contribute towards making life a lot more difficult. So there are preservatives. They have found specific colors in M&Ms that are bad. So anything that we can do to keep it as natural as possible, as far away from preservatives as possible. Now, of course, with middle and high schoolers, that's hard to do. So banning anything obviously doesn't work, but can we at least regulate and keep it to the level possible? Can we keep it lower? Sleep, very, very important. A lot of children with ADHD struggle on 2 levels. 1, getting to sleep. That means, you know, they go to bed, but they don't sleep. They don't start sleeping soon enough. And then the ones who sleep have trouble with quality of sleep. So one of the things that works is a weighted blanket. A lot of children love it, especially because they have sensory difficulties. So weighted blankets, you can buy one. It's very, very expensive, or you can just do what we usually do and take a couple of heavy, cotton ones and put them one on top of the other. A lot of children with ADHD also have something called restless leg syndrome, and they're just tired because their body's not allowing them to rest enough. Exercise helps like crazy. It helps all of us, but it helps children with ADHD disproportionately, both with calming their bodies down as well as providing that, the serotonin hit that they need to kind of keep their self-esteem going. Because let's remember that if it's hard for us as parents, it's 100 times harder for them as kids living in that body. And imagine if your body, your itself, and the brain that's supposed to tell you what to do itself is not cooperating and helping you out. Yeah. There is a brand called Charu in India that sells weighted blankets. Thank you. I will go look it up. I hope they're a little more affordable in Indian prices. That'd be really nice.
They are, and the designs are quite nice too. Actually, I need to pick up one for my husband who's complaining of lack of sleep. So yeah.
All right. The way I went about it is I learned to crochet, and I have given away lots of these blankets. So you can just make them as heavy as you want by using chunky woolen. It's a mindfulness exercise for me. I learned this during the pandemic when I couldn't do too much. And all my anger, anxiety, everything went in. I would just do fast. I did some 20 blankets or something. So I kind of took out all my emotions on these blankets. So that's another option. Okay. Thanks for this. I will go look this up. Supplementing trace elements, guys, please do this under medical supervision. They have found things like zinc, magnesium, selenium. These are trace elements. If you check and see what the levels are, some of them can be supplemented easily, some can't, because it has to go past the blood-brain barrier. So this is definitely something you should do under medical supervision, not otherwise. Okay, the one thing that really, really helps with all children with ADHD, a lot of the hyperactivity and the body difficulties come from sensory integration issues. So an occupational therapist who works with sensory integration will definitely help. Now, many of our children will look like they have no problems with gross motor. Some of the kids I know have taught themselves to cycle, taught themselves to skate. They look like they're very good with their body. But what an occupational therapist would do is literally just elevate it, put them on a, slightly elevated, like a, what is it called, a band or I don't know, it looks like those trapeze things that they do in the circus, just off the floor by like a feet, and then make them do stuff. And that's when you realize how difficult it is for them, because the sensory integration hasn't happened in the way it should. So it will look, with younger kids, it will look like spatial issues, gross motor problems. But many children with ADHD have issues with fine motor, cutting, writing, handwriting, grip. So no, actually OT helps at all levels. It's very few OTs know how to work with children who are older, because it comes with its own difficulties. So you definitely need to find a good OT, and that is very, very hard. So I'm with you on that, but we have some recommendations that we can give. Sensory integration is super critical. The other thing I found is a lot of cooking stuff provides activities that are OT, right? So if you're going to, and thanks to MasterChef, it's become very cool for boys to cook. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that stigma, at least. And a lot of what we do in cooking is fine motor and gross motor. Whatever it is, you pick baking, any kind of taking the leaves of the coriander and stuff. So maybe that's the approach to go. Usually with middle and high schoolers, it's got to be activities and fun and something concrete coming out, because that also helps them feel good about what they've done. So any questions on the body and the sensory part? All right, keep your questions. We always have time to answer it later. What do we do other than that? So knowledge, step one, you need to know enough about ADHD. Hopefully you have a good idea now, but your child needs to know about it too. What happens with a lot of children is they think they're broken. They think there's a problem. Everyone else is able to do so much. I'm struggling so much. Look, I have not got it. So if they understand their brain, so again, by the end of this webinar, we'll put out a couple of things in chat. I just need to go find that link. We've used this very successfully. It's a video, kind of animated, kind of talking about it, that says the ADHD person, it ends with this, that the ADHD person can feel like the smartest and the dumbest person, the most motivated and the laziest person, all at the same time in the same place. So that's what it feels like. And once a child knows about it, see, with middle school and teenage, a lot of the issues come with resistance, attitudinal, pushing back. What do you know, right? That is part of the normal development. But when it comes with ADHD, you have even more of a problem because this child is pushing back, but they're actually pushing back against you who are trying to work with them. So sometimes helping them understand their brain and say, listen, we're doing this not to make you feel like a baby or be bad in front of your things. This is just what your body needs in order to do well. What are those? Fidgets. I'll show you this. Let me see if you can see this. If you see this, we bought a mattress and pillows, and we found this, and I have this here for children to use. It's some kind of a silicone material. It takes care of this. We've had yo-yos like this. We've had those hand massagers, the ones that you put between your palm and you go, those wooden ones. Lot of things there. They have very fancy cubes that you each wall, side you press, it does something else. So you can go as high tech or low tech as you want on this. Rubik's cubes, anything. So here's the thing with fidgets, though, it has to work for a child in a school setting. So some of the things we found work very well are these friendship bracelets that are rubbery so that you can put and pull. We've had, we take those, what we call God thread, the black thread, and then put knots and put it on a child's wrist because, religious stuff is rarely touched in India. So that means that kid will get it. What happens with things like friendship bracelets and all is the day after Friendship Day, because everyone has so many, will say nobody is going to wear another one. And that means that child is not able to fidget with it. So can we find blue tack? This is what we use to stick posters, is something that works very well because it's non-staining. It provides that little kind of sensory input that's required. The child can have it in their pocket. It doesn't have to be very out there. Body breaks, we did that. Please make sure your child has body breaks. At home, we have flexible seating as an option. Do you want to sit on a ball? Do you want to stand and work? Do you want to have one of those desks that moves? We've actually seen that if you take one of those tailoring desks, this is what, the Singer machines used to come with the leg at the bottom. And you have instead of the machine, we have a tabletop. And so the child can kind of press and do stuff. So body breaks, very, very important on how you can do it. Study skills, we've talked about this in the first webinar as well. So that's something that's on our YouTube channel. You can go back and look at it. We do skills classes during summers, and we have remedials for that. But anything that you can do to teach with planners, with timers. We had, for one of our kids, there was a watch that buzzed. At that time, it was hard to find. It had to be imported from the US and stuff, but now it's very easy to find. All your smartwatches can have alarms. So you teach children to buzz. So you could that watch could be programmed by the parents. So basically, you would figure out during, you could give out examples to say, breathe deep. Like if you know that math class is a problem and you know when math is in the timetable, so you say, take a deep breath, calm down, you can do it. Stuff like that. There is stuff that you can do. Unfortunately, it's one and it's all the way in the US, and it only worked a little for a limited period of time, but we have to work with whatever we have. So any kind of buzzing alarm, not an alarm that goes king, 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 because then that's going to get, what shall you say, teachers are going to have a problem with it because it disturbs. Set places to study, set routines, very, very important. Social skills and teaching social skills, very important. But more than that, building a relationship with your child and making sure that our expectation of success stays up there. A very real picture. If your child is working at a level where they're failing, you tell them, listen, you're failing. I don't believe that this is you. We will work. We will get this going. Again, no one said it's easy. It's just possible. The last bit. So this is something we are very careful and wary about talking about. In India, I think most parents all the way around the world, very wary of bringing up medication. So there are two ways to look at this. You say, all right, I'm going to try without medication. I'm going to do everything in place and I'm going to deal with it and deal with what it takes. Perfectly fine. If you're going to also add medication to that, it's going to you have to look at it at a 6-month window. Now, many people think that medication changes the brain. I wish it was easy to change the brain because then we would have changed the wiring and we would have moved on, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't change the brain. What it does is provides the child support, much like glasses provide us support to read. We don't think about glasses, but we think about medication. So if you are going with medication, please look at a minimum 6-month window before you say it's working or not. It takes about 2 months for it to get ramped up. There is titration, because suppose your child is really kind of very, very low or down or sleeping all the time. That means the dose is not either the right medicine or the right dose. So it's called titration. You'll have to work with your doctor, tell them what the side effects are. If the side effects are high, that means it's not working, right? That something has to change. Once that all happens, say it takes about 3 months, if you're lucky to find, a doctor who will work with you and do that, then you're looking at another 2 months, because then it'll slowly ramp up. And then it'll start, for someone else to notice, it'll take about that time. So if you think you don't want medication, I would suggest, if you're trying it, keep the 6-month window. The beauty of it is once you stop it, it goes out of your system in 1.5, 2 days maximum. It's usually half a day to a day. So it's not going to sit in your kid's brain. What actually works are the therapies and the skills. But what the medication does is it helps the child sit at the table and absorb all of that. So up to you on what you're going to do. I think a combined effort is going to help, but obviously the pharmacological bit, doctor is the expert, and please work with your doctor. Any questions at all on this?
Hi, this is Sunita.
Hi.
I got my daughter assessed last year, which is 2022 June in India. And I met the HOD of NIMHANS, and they administered tests along with the psychologist. And somehow I saw there was a sense of hesitation from the doctor to administer the medicine, though we were prepared and we were welcoming it. We said anything to help with her struggle. But he said we will take a call next year, because if to him it felt like she's able to manage it. But for me, it was like she's able to, yes, survive and cope through the day. But is it really reaching her potential? No. So he said, no, let's take a call next year. He kind of pushed it. So to me, I don't know, should I just listen to the doctor, or should I see what is best for my daughter and get her assessed again, which is quite I feel it's quite exhausting for my kid as well.
So if the assessment was psychoeducational, you don't need that for ADHD. An ADHD diagnosis is usually questionnaires sent to the parent and the child and the teachers.
And the school, yeah. And they did it with her also.
Right. So here, there are 2 ways to do it. The doctor was probably, if I remember right, your child is not very old, right? She's quite young.
She's 9. So last year she was 8. Yeah.
Okay. So one is that they see, if the school is inclusive, things are okay. Let's see how much we can push it. This is what I'm saying is, like, we have a slightly irrational approach towards medication, sometimes even doctors. Second, many parents don't take well to this. So doctors they don't know, right, what kind of a parent you are before they suggest it. So many times they're like, should we do this? Should we not do it? So in many ways, our resistance to allopathic medication is actually harming a lot of success factors that our kids can have. So yeah. I would suggest that you're not in India right now. You could just go wherever it is and try it and see if you want to do it. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work, but that's something that the doctor has to say. But
yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
Yeah, please tell them, listen, I'm not going to be upset if you say we need medication. We are willing to try. Maybe then.
Yeah. In fact, he sort of, I don't know, stereotyped me as being the over-obsessed mom about her child, and who will go to the moon to even fix the problem for her, and I have to be less involved, and I have to take a step back. I have to be, I should not be an extension of her brain. He said a lot of things that I should sort of make her more independent and all of that. See, I agree.
Yeah.
That is fine. But for me, it's like, how are you helping her? I don't want her to miss the bus. In 2 years, she will have a period. So right. There will be hormone issues. And along with that, if you have ADHD issues, so how's she going to cope? Like yesterday, she was in the assembly and she had to speak a few lines. Mm-hmm. She spoke before her turn and she was a little upset about it, though nobody said anything because it's a very inclusive school. Her friend nudged her and she said, hey, it's not your turn. She said, okay. And then she waited for her turn. But she came home and I said, hey, it was fun watching you. She said, Mama, I messed up. I spoke before my lines. I said, it's okay. It happens. Confusion happens to many people when we're on stage, which is okay. So I could feel her pain and her hurt, and I didn't want to see that. So maybe I feel if I'd medicated her, maybe she should have had better attention on the stage.
See,
I don't know.
we don't know. See, the thing is, we
Yeah.
don't know. So I think
Correct,
the
we don't know.
answer, if you ask me, somewhere is in the middle. I would prefer an over-involved parent to one in denial, honestly. But it is true that sometimes parents do have to step back and make their child independent. So, all of this is true. We just have to find the right balance of what works.
Yes, I let her be. I let her. I didn't go and jump to the stage and save her. I just came home, and in the evening I said, "Hey, so this how are you? It was fun. I watched you. I have photos and videos." She said, "Hey, Mama, this happened." I said, "It's okay. It happens to most of us." But she felt bad. I
See,
don't want that to lead to
Uh,
frustration tomorrow during high school and lead to drugs. I'm overthinking, but I'm just thinking loud. That's all. Like, will this frustration multiply tomorrow in high school, and will it lead to drugs or
Okay,
whatever?
so for your own peace of mind, please do not go that far. With or
Yeah,
without
I'm just
it,
overthinking. I know.
drugs is a problem. So whether you give her medication now or not, drugs is going to continue to be a problem. Right? This, if anything, they have found that children who have been treated are less likely to do it, but there is really no answer. We don't know all of this, and it's very individual specific, right? So please don't freak yourself out.
Yeah,
No,
I am freaked out.
you're going to have to stay. So we have actually some things that parents can do for themselves, which comes up. But guys, look at cognitive behavior therapy. Some of the skills we've put on the site, all or nothing thinking, overgeneralization. These are all the things that CBT can help a child work with. There is now DBT, dialectic behavior therapy, which is the next level up. So if you can find someone who's doing DBT, that would also be of use. But with middle and high schoolers, a lot of what you can do doesn't have to be therapy. It could be music, it could be art, it could be sports. Sports for sure. Some children with ADHD actually do well with sports, so that's one of their strengths. But any kind of team sport that will help with those skills, will help with the RSD, the rejection sensitivity coming down. These are all things that you can do. Neurofeedback is something that you can try. It is research proven. They have found out that it does work. And how this is your child will be sitting in front of a computer. There is a cap with all these electrodes that are measuring the brain. There would be a scan ahead of time that says this is the baseline, and then they will have a certain amount that they want the brain waves to look like. And they'll talk to you and they'll say, what are you looking, what are your goals? And accordingly, they program the computer. Now your kid is sitting in front of the computer. There is no joystick. There is nothing. The whatever the brain wave is doing is how that car or whatever that game is controlled. So what they're doing is helping the brain teach itself. Neurofeedback has been proven to be very, very good at several levels, from stroke and traumatic brain injury all the way up to ADHD and autism. So that's something you can think about. NIMHANS in Bangalore does have it. We're quite lucky to have it, and they don't charge too much because it's a public setup. I think they just go on a donation basis after initial 20 sessions, and then you can go for 40 sessions. I would say do as many sessions as you can. What else? Any role plays that you can do at home that are going to address specific difficulties that your child has. Repetition to all kinds of social interaction, please. That means going to the store and getting stuff. Telling the auto guy or the helping the guy kind of navigate, whatever it is at different levels. If we can provide social interaction, all of this helps the brain. Of course, all of our work has to be scaffolded. If you're going to give a child with typical brain development money and say, go and get this and come, they will ask you, can I also get a sweet? You say yes or no, and they will do it. A child with difficulty is going to go and push the barriers. So this means Google Pay versus something else, which comes with its own difficulties. So independence, but scaffolded independence, because they're not there yet. So what can parents do? Please model emotional regulation. I would say today I have completely failed at it with one of the kids I worked with. It's not always easy to do. Please teach skills. Look at this as a skills deficit and say, I'm going to teach you the skill and I'm going to provide opportunities for repetition. And if you're going to do it 6 times out of 10, we're getting there. So reward that good behavior. I saw you try. I know it was hard for you. And reward it right away. To say, if you're going to do this for 3 weeks, at the end of the month, I will give. Our children don't have what it takes. Please expect risk-taking in teenage, and please talk to them about it. This is why that having that relationship is really important. I wish we could solve all problems. Unfortunately, we are only human. Please expect ups and downs. So things will be going really, really well, and then there'll be some slump. And this is normal. This is typical for our child with ADHD. That means if you notice, it goes like that, but the trajectory is kind of going in the right direction. So that's what we have to look at. We have to look and say, 2 years ago, would I have thought this could have happened? No. So I'm doing well. Can it be better? Always. Can it be worse? That's what it can always be worse, and that's what we don't want. Please partner with school. Some of us are lucky enough to have inclusive schools. Some of us aren't. Whatever it is, partnering with school always helps versus fighting and arguing with school. We know a lot of parents who make it the teacher's problem. It's possible. It's possible that it's the teacher's problem. But this child is sitting in that teacher's class, and making an enemy of her or making her feel bad about her skills is anyway not the answer. So as parents, for us to do that emotional regulation, especially during PTMs, very, very important. Please be patient with yourselves. Please do what it takes to go and do, have a life of your own. It cannot be that you're doing only this and this alone. And that's actually bad for all of us. And please pick your battles. You're not going to get everything. You're not going to get it all right. Figure out what you need to prioritize. Pick your battles, because this is the long game. Resources, Attitude is a lovely website. You can sign up for it and they will send you emails. You can go up. It's a free website. You can take a look at it. They have a lot of these guides and free things that you can do. They have children's resources as well. Collaborative problem solving by Dr. Ross Green, very, very useful, has helped a lot of people. We're actually going to come up with a MOOC and put it up on Prishni for people to learn the technique. That's supposed to be done soonish. Any books by Dr. Halliwell and Dr. John Ratty. These are the people, I think, what was it called, Parul? Discovering, there was one very, very famous book.
Distraction.
What is that book? I forgot the name.
I'll just
Driven to Distraction.
Driven to Distraction.
Driven to Distraction is a good one, but pretty much any book by these two people. Dr. Halliwell himself has ADHD and he is the world's expert on it. Take a look at these books. For sensory difficulties, 2 books by Carol Kranowitz. One is called The Out of Sync Kid and the other one is called The Out of Sync Kid Has Fun. So basically the Out of Sync Kid goes through the different areas of sensory difficulty and says hyper and hypo and helps you identify which side your kid is. For example, they could be hyper on audio, on the audio sensitivity, but hyper on visual or whatever. Like it could be a different, it doesn't mean that they have to be hypo on everything or hyper on everything. And then she has put together this set of activities that you can do that's age specific, as well as based on whether you are hypo on audio, hyper on visual, like that. She has categorized it. It's a beautiful book. So that's something also you can consider. The other website is chat.org and talks about ADHD quite a bit. All right. Anima, you want to come in a little about Prishni before we go on?
Yes. So first of all, I want to apologize with everybody. I think there was a technical issue and the link got messed up. So I want to apologize. So Prishni is a tech platform for persons with disabilities. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to collectively get these educational solutions online on a platform so that we are able to reach wider audience in tier 2, tier 3 cities, in rural areas, and also in tier 1 cities. And also the choice would be more like today we have one solution, tomorrow we may have more things which will be coming up. And even for the teachers or the people, we can take them to other organizations as well. So we are trying to develop this community for the for the benefit of both parents and the educational solutions. And so that's it, what I want to say right now.
Thank you, Anima. Thanks a lot. We've partnered with Prishni for all of these webinars. And other than this one little bit, it's worked out quite well. I think it's a platform that we believe in and we'd like for, to kind of stick with it, because tech is not our strength. And I don't think we should get into things that are not our strength. So we plan to partner with them on several levels.